that they're safe. I get it. But then there's a deeper level, which is like, okay, what's your relationship with these things? What is the U.S. government's relationship with these things? And there's evidence that there is a relationship and that it's a longstanding. And that raises like a lot of questions about intent. And so like, what is that? And I just personally decided, and people have been hurt by these things. That's a fact. That's a fact. It's a knowable fact. It's a provable fact, and killed. And I'm not saying millions of people have been killed by whatever these things are, but people have been killed, and it's known because it's working its way through the courts out of the VA. So I don't know, an object that is by definition supernatural, it's above the laws of nature as we understand them, and that has resulted in the deaths of people. We don't spend enough time thinking about like what that adds up to. Like, not good, actually, not good.
Okay, so on this topic that, people have gotten hurt, people have had bad experiences with them, there's also a lot of research and a lot of reports where they have been, quote unquote, healed. From the story from Renato Hernandez. If you want to know more about all of this, go into the channel from Preston Dennett. Now, he has a little bit of, I don't know how to call it. Sometimes he goes into these more fantastic, more impactful sort of thumbnails and ideas, but he has a lot of videos on the healings and the positive things that come from these quote unquote encounters. And it's not just the traditional looking from sci-fi things, aliens, the quote unquote grays, but there's also other types, and there seems to be something much bigger than what's going on here. So he talks about this research called his name is Gary Nolan, I believe, and he has been studying some of the, he's saying that these things, these UFO crashes or this UFO interaction or research has caused harm to some people who are close to this. So this is true, but this seems to be some sort of a collateral thing. So it says here, they had heard weird noises buzzing in their heads, got sick. A reasonable subset of them had claimed to have seen UAPs, and some claimed to be close enough to things that got them sick. So now, the way that Tucker Carlson interprets this is like, oh, they're causing harm to us, and we should be worried about this. And indeed, we should be looking into this. But what seems to be happening here, more control and other core brain functions. So this right here, how does the impact of electromagnetic frequencies factor into your hypothesis about what exactly transpired here? In my channel, I have a lot of videos talking about this interaction with the electromagnetic field and how it all seems to be an interaction with the electromagnetic field. Reality, matter itself, seems to be basically an interaction with the electromagnetic field. We are this electricity, we are this quote unquote light. This seems to be what everything is made of. You go into quantum physics, you can trace everything into light. I've talked about this a lot and I've been writing about it, and it seems to be part of this. All is energy. It seems that these UAPs have a lot of this energy. So some of these things that negatively impact humans could be just part of this very strong energy. Now, okay, so as I'm saying, I'm not gonna go deep into this. I don't have all the answers. I'm gonna tell you what I know, what I've been looking into. If you look into the reports of these, let's go into it, quote unquote abductions and so on and so forth, people gain extreme spiritual development and knowledge through these experiences. This is why their mainstream is starting to talk about this as a spiritual phenomenon. If you go into the research of people who channel these quote unquote beings, there's a whole deep spiritual message coming through all of this. So these are beings that allegedly can discard their material bodies and turn into energy. So when we think about it being harmful to the human brain, and when we think about ourselves being more than brain, this comes as a sad collateral damage to understanding a much larger truth that might be way more amazing than this. So as I'm saying, I'm just giving things here and there. I'm not going deep into it. I might go deep into it in the future. There's just so much to cover that it's a little bit overwhelming. So this is one of my main fears, that this is going to turn into something negative. But I've talked about this in the past. I've deleted some of the videos because they're complicated. But if you go into it, there's a lot of data and a lot of research about this. The interaction between these quote-unquote UFOs or UAPs and these nuclear warfare, and how they, according to ex-Air Force personnel, they deactivated these nuclear devices. And there are reports of these UAPs currently in the current war zones in Ukraine and so on and so forth. And if you go into the channelings, into the research into all of this, it is mentioned that they are very aware that we're using these nuclear devices, and these nuclear weapons can cause harm beyond our physical reality. So this is why they seem to be very interested into what's going on here. So in this mainstream interview, Tucker talks about what exactly is our connection with these beings, with these aliens. Now, I have no way to prove this. I've just read a lot of reports. I've read a lot of abduction reports and a lot of some other texts. I'm just take this as science fiction, if you may. I'm just going all over the place here. So there are a few theories. One is that we are an experiment where all of these extraterrestrial beings have been involved into our creation, into our guiding. And as they are managing this interview here in the mainstream is what we think of religion or gods and so on and so forth. It's these extra natural, perhaps non-physical intelligences which gain a physical body and then disintegrate it, and they go into the heavens and come back down and so on and so forth. Another reason, and this is more tied to the idea of the quote-unquote gray aliens, is that they are some version of ourselves in the future who were affected by something, and they lost their, in a way, their emotions. And they're so interested in humans because we still have emotions. We still have, when you think about this, it sounds like a sci-fi horror movie or sci-fi interesting movie, if you may. But when you look into the research and you see that these quote-unquote beings, and you can see this in Robert Monroe's book on out-of-body experiences, you can see this in DMT reports, even in near-death experiences. How come these beings are so interested in our relationships, in the way we live, in our feelings, in our thoughts, in our cultures? There seems to be a genuine interesting about what we do. So then Joe Rogan goes into this actually, and he asks, well, why are these beings so interested about this? I wouldn't be interested about these barely evolved monkeys who are playing with thermonuclear bombs. Well, they would be if they were invested in us somehow. Of course, there's a lot of questions. There's a lot of things going on here. I'm going to be looking into this little by little. As I said, I'm putting everything together. I'm coming with a cohesive idea, with a cohesive theory of everything. And I give bits and pieces in these videos here and there. You take what is useful for you, you discard what is not, do your own research. I do really like how Carlson ended here, and he brought up a very important final thought into this.
Well, it depends. Like that. Okay, so the template that you're using to understand this is like science fiction, right? These are an advanced race of beings from somewhere else. But the template that every other society before us has used is a spiritual one. Mm-hmm. There is a whole world that we can't see that acts on people, a supernatural world that's acting on us all the time for good and bad. Every society has thought this before ours. In fact, every society in all recorded history has thought that until, I'll be specific, August 1945, when we dropped the atom bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And all of a sudden, the West is just officially secular. We're God. There is no God but us. And that's the world that we have grown up in, but that's an anomaly. Like no one else has ever thought that. There's never been a society that thought that.
Indeed. It is this idea of modern materialism, extreme materialism, this idea of not believing in something else is a new modern thing. All ancient philosophies, all ancient ideas and religions talk about something else. Talk about altered states of consciousness and extrasensory perception. Talk about all of these things. It's only until now where science has become a dogma that we started thinking that there is nothing else. It's just materialism and there is no purpose, there is no reason. And in a way, it is a natural development, because now that we understand more or less how the world works and we don't see anything, we don't see this other side, we don't see this spiritual side. But as I said, this is a new thing. But now that science is evolving and science is looking into things like quantum physics, the near-death experience reports, the transition from life into death and how the brainwaves interact and so on and so forth, we're looking into science itself is proving the existence of something else. This is a huge development. And if you go into this channel, go through ongoing research, every single video has a piece of published research attached to it. So this is very exciting. So just to finish up on this alien theme phenomenon, as I've said, it's very convoluted. There's a lot of things going on. I don't go deep into this because at this point, this is just anecdotal experience. Whereas in terms of near-death experiences and psychedelic breakthrough and so on and so forth, we do have more structured research in terms of these aliens and channelings and so on and so forth. It's strictly anecdotal, but everything at the end of the day is pointing to the same thing. Now, I would encourage, I know that I speak very freely about this. For some people, this might be the first time they hear about something like this, but now that Tucker Carlson and Joe Rogan and Benny Johnson and these mainstream figures and even the most recent reports and articles are talking about this phenomenon as something normal, something natural, or perhaps supernatural, but part of the natural, we have to look at it with skepticism, with an open mind. And from my personal ideas, which I will develop later, I can say that, as I've been saying all along, despite the strangeness, despite the weirdness, despite that it seems as a negative, scary thing, it seems that the underlying reality is much more positive than we might think. If you don't believe me, go and look into research on these abductions and healings, because they happen at the same time. People get abducted and they are healed from different things. They are explained about spiritual themes. They are these aliens, even the Greys or whatever, the most scariest ones that you might think. They tell them about, as he said in the beginning, Benny Johnson, they tell them about the existence of something else, something that so far we have determined and explained as God. Thank you so much for watching. If you find any value in the content that I'm putting forward, please consider supporting the project through Patreon on the links below. Likewise, you can like, share, subscribe, comment, or follow me on other social media so more people have access to this information. Thank you so much for watching, and maybe I'll see you in the next one.